seemed to be very upset.
Barry told Devereaux that he wanted to confess to a crime that he'd committed 13 years before.
It was basically a deep sense of remorse, and it was almost volcanic when it just kept building and building, and then finally came out. And he had just made the decision that he was going to right this situation.
Devereaux agreed to help. He contacted the Attorney General's office. Prosecutors set up an interview. Barry's lawyers were present throughout.
You wanted to confess to a crime of murder that occurred back in 1989 or thereabouts.
This wasn't any unsolved murder from 1989. Todd Barry was confessing to one that officially had been closed for 6 years. The crime for which Scott Hornoff was serving a life sentence. The bludgeoning death of Victoria Cushman.
The victim, Victoria Cushman, is that true?
That's correct.
Okay.
Initially, detectives were skeptical. They spent the first hour of their interview questioning Barry about his relationship with Cushman.
So you had some dates, traditional dates,
Yeah.
dinner, a drink, or whatever you want to call it, and then it became strictly a sexual relationship. So we're on the same.
Eventually, the officers' continuing skepticism angered Barry.
And it might have been actually this.
It's not a joke that I killed Vicky Cushman, all right?
Nobody thinks it is.
Stop.
All right.
Take a break.
Okay.
Come on, Todd.
Jesus.
Barry returned to the room a few minutes later, very emotional.
A terrible thing happened with Vicky. She died. I killed her. I never, ever intended to kill this girl. And at any time, anyway.
Barry went on to say that on August 10th, 1989, several months after he had stopped seeing Vicky, he had been drinking heavily and smoking marijuana. He told detectives he went to Cushman's apartment that night, but could not say why. Barry said he was strangely determined to talk to her.
She wasn't frightened. She wasn't, she was more like, what are you doing here? And I saw her, I don't know, Vicky, man. I started to talk about our relationship, and then I never thought it was a healthy relationship. And then, she brought up this police officer.
The officer was Scott Hornoff. Vicky said he was planning to leave his wife and son. Todd Barry said he told Vicky he did not think this would actually happen.
We got a little tense because I was like, Vicky, you're going to ruin this guy's life. And then she said, no, he's going to leave, and everything just, I'm like, no, Vicky.
Then Barry's story took an abrupt and bizarre turn. He said Vicky discovered that her cat had gotten out the window, and she angrily threatened to sue him.
I'm going to, something happens to the cat, I'm going to sue you, and then I just lost it.
What happened?
And then I jumped, I just attacked, jumped on her, and
You grab her? Kick her?
no, I didn't kick her, I just...
Punch her?
No, I didn't punch her.
What'd you do?
I strangled her. I remember strangling her.
And then Barry revealed a telling detail.
What happened then?
And then I whack her on the head with something that was on the coffee table, or close by.
And what do you think you hit her with?
I think I hit her with a small object. I'm not exactly, something like about that big.
It had never been viewed as a prominent object. It had never been viewed as the actual murder weapon. It was a jewelry box. And he discussed that in great detail, and actually how he used that to strike her. And that was the kind of graphic detail. He described it in such a way that convinced us that he really was the person that had killed her.
What Barry could not provide for prosecutors was any explanation for his actions. Only remorse.
And I'm not 100% certain on all things that went on, except I was whacked out of my mind. I did a horrible thing to this poor girl. She didn't deserve to die. Whatever possessed me to do something like that, I have no idea.
Barry did know why he had come forward. Guilt over the crime and the fact that Scott Hornoff was paying for it.
I've been hiding all these years, and that this guy's in jail, and there's no freaking way I can have this guy in jail and me outside. No way. No how.
Were you doing any kind of drugs or drinking during this?
When the interview was finally over, Barry seemed prepared to accept the consequences of his actions.
You had somebody who almost seemed more at peace in his own mind after he went through the process and basically surrendered himself to the state police.
By the fall of 2002, Scott Hornoff had served 6.5 years in Rhode Island State Prison for the murder of Vicky Cushman 13 years earlier. On Monday, November 4th, his defense attorney, Joel Chase, received a call from the prosecutor of Hornoff's case, Randy White.
He said, something significant has happened over the weekend. So I said, well, what is it? He said, I really can't talk about it over the phone. And I said, well, Randy, I mean, animal, vegetable, or mineral, I mean, at least tell me whether it's a good significant or a bad significant. And he said, well, for you and Scott, I think it's a good significant.
Later that morning, Hornoff was taken from his prison cell to a windowless conference room where his lawyer was waiting with authorities.
I kind of took a step back, and I immediately thought, what are they going to accuse me of now? It really couldn't get much worse. So I had a seat, and I don't remember the exact sequence of questions, but at some point they asked me if I knew anybody with the last name of Barry.
When Hornoff said no, it was then that authorities got to the point. They explained to Hornoff that another man, 45-year-old Todd Barry, had confessed to the murder that had put him in prison. Even more shocking, they hoped to release Hornoff on bail as soon as possible.
Here I am fighting for my life, and here this guy comes out of the blue. I called my mom and I said, I'm coming home today. And my mom, in her West Virginia accent, just kept saying, oh sweet Jesus, my baby's coming home.
But due to legal technicalities, Hornoff couldn't go home that day. Instead, he was returned to his cell.
When I went back to the prison, one of the guards went out and got me a bacon double cheeseburger and a large fry and a Mountain Dew. And guard after guard came in and shook my hand. Even the ones who said, I thought you did it. They shook my hand and said, I don't know how you got through this. That felt really good.
Just 2 days later, on November 6th, Scott Hornoff's mother and brother were among the many supporters packed into the Providence, Rhode Island Superior Courtroom. Then Hornoff was ushered in by guards.
Walking in there with shackles and handcuffs was pretty tough, but I knew it was the last time I was ever going to wear them.
I remember his coming in and looking around, kind of like, I can't believe I'm here. Almost like I knew this was going to happen one day, but he was still trying to drink it all in.
State Prosecutor Randy White proposed that Hornoff be released on bail until his charges could be vacated. After a brief statement from the defense, Judge Krause made his pronouncement.
Mr. White, are you firmly convinced, beyond all doubt, that the position you take this afternoon is absolutely in the interest of justice and fundamental fairness, as well as the integrity of the court and the judicial system?
Yes, we are.
Defendant shall therefore be released upon a $10,000 personal recognizance bond on all three matters that are before the court. Court will be in recess.
Thank you.
Further proceedings.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
For Scott Hornoff, that short legal announcement represented the two things he had dreamed of for 6 years: vindication and freedom.
It's a miracle, hon. It's a miracle. You're free, baby.
On the steps of the Superior Court, Hornoff made his first public statements as a free man.
My thoughts go out to Vicky's loved ones and to Mr. Barry's loved ones and to the thousands of other innocent people still wrongfully imprisoned across the United States.
That same day, Todd Barry would attend court proceedings, beginning his own long-delayed journey through the justice system.
Some people have no consciences at all, but obviously Todd Barry does. The irony of it is, if you look at all of that he was getting engaged just as Hornoff was getting indicted, he was having his kids as Hornoff was going off to jail, and, you know, it has to nag on him every single day.
To prosecutors, the Vicky Cushman murder case offers no simple lessons.
We can't point to anything that went wrong other than the ultimate decision. And the ultimate decision was really not wrong based on the evidence the jury had to consider.
Of course you go back and you say, oh my goodness, what did I miss? What could I have seen? However, I would still come to the same conclusion today, if given what was given to me as a juror at that time.
To critics, though, the lessons are all too clear. A botched crime scene investigation and a single-minded focus on one suspect had sent an innocent man to jail and let a murderer go free.
If the Warwick police had investigated properly, the chances are Scott Hornoff would have been exonerated, because they would have done all of the physical evidence. They might have picked up something from Todd Barry. They were so focused on Scott Hornoff that everybody else got ruled out.
The man who might be most entitled to outrage, Scott Hornoff, says he remains philosophical about his experience with the American judicial system. He says he's determined to move forward with his life.
I feel like there's enough bitter people in the world, and I'm not going to be one of them. Sure, I could let this experience consume me, and if it did, it would be like a cancer and it would eat me up. I'm still pro-law enforcement, I'm still pro-cop. I'm a cop in my heart, and I always will be. But I want to see the right person caught. I want to see the guilty held accountable.
It's truly a pleasure to introduce Detective Scott Hornoff.
After his release and exoneration, Hornoff began working with programs like the Innocence Project on behalf of the wrongfully convicted.
Here I am, a white, 40-year-old, middle-class cop. If this could happen to me, it could happen to anybody, and it does. It happens in our society a lot more than we want to admit. I'm just determined to see some good come out of this. And so far, it's working.